Yeah, the skinny one, right? Yeah. Yeah. I chose the pictures I sent to you. So yeah, basically what we do is we, as a consultancy, we aim to not only build the product, but build the teams. So that's one of the reasons we love working with these guys, working with real professionals. So as a consultancy, we come in, we help build your products, and then we leave you with a team that knows how to do it. So that's the main focus of what we're doing. This needs to change now. This is old. This is very, very old now. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Right, so what do we do? So we do discover. We have 4 main things that we do. We do discovery for your product. And the deliverables is things like research lab, digital strategy, brand strategy, and things like that. Very good fun. I feel weird talking about myself now I've got a job. It's weird. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we create. So one of the things I love doing is, my day-to-day job is wonderful, I love it, but yeah, I like to be a bit more challenged in the evening. So that's why I design naked in the evening. Just thought I'd let you know. With no aircon. Oh, it's hardcore. All right, so yeah, things like brand identity. And one of the things that we've just started working with for True Digital is working with Morphosis for a design system. So if you're looking for an amazing design system for your product, come and see these guys, or us. So just moving on a little bit. Yeah, so this is our process that we've been doing for FinTech. We're also working with a sustainability company in Sweden to help track CO2e. So yeah, lots of funny things. That's it. And we've been working with lots of different clients, including Birmingham Hospital. So always nice to see the website I designed every time I go in. They don't give me a discount though, bastards. But yeah, we'll leave them. This is a really cool app that we were working with called Lemmy. So if you do get to download it, please try. So it's sort of selecting the favorite places you want to go. We worked with Liquid Bank that failed miserably because it was actually money laundering system, which we didn't realize at the time. There you go. Then we also worked with G-Able. Anyone from G-Able here? No? Okay, good. All right. So we do lots of training. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, for me anyway. That's good for me, I think. Right, so everyone's here for design thinking, right? Design thinking methodologies. So what I want you to do is, during this talk, I really want you to start to think about your questions now, right? And try and think of a question that you can ask these experts, because we do it day to day. This is what we live. And we love for you to ask some questions that are more practical. So don't go, is design thinking important? Yeah, it is, because there's about 200 people here wanting to listen. So yeah, think of something that can really help you in your day-to-day, and then ask us at the end. So, oh, it's Mr. Andy. Here he is, go.
Hello everybody.
Please, come up.
Hi. It's good to see everyone. This is actually only our second design meetup, right? Everything else has been tech-led, so it's good to have you. You did do the one. Oh. Thank you, Carl. Yeah, so hi, my name's Andy. So I'm the head of design at Seven Peaks at the moment. Next slide, please.
Clicker. See?
Okay, oh, very interesting. A little bit about me then. Basically, my name's Andy. I'm from Birmingham, which is in England, in the UK, which is where the Peaky Blinders hails from, so I'm not sure if you guys... Any fans? Fans? Yeah. Yes, you probably recognise me in the top left there. Yeah, and basically I got in where I am today because I started off in graphic design back at home in college. Oasis. So I managed to make my way up into Manchester to go to university, which is where Carl hails from, which is where I got my interest really. I studied a weird course called Design Futures. And actually it turns out, I spoke to Graham recently and he was actually a lecturer at Salford University, so it's a small world, really? Which is good. So yeah, lots of connections here. Yeah, so this is where I took an interest in design really, and took an interest in UX. So I left university, I went to work for a pizza company for about 6 months and realised that I didn't really have a proper job, so I thought I'd go and get a proper job. And then I went to Cambridge. I was lucky enough to get a job at Cambridge near the university there. Basically, Magic Software, discover great apps every day. And it wasn't a very good company, to be honest with you, but it was my first proper graphic design stroke UX job. And that's where my interest really took off. And then 2.5 years later, I moved into London. So I had a really good opportunity to work with a very big agency, marketing agency, which is where it really took off for me. So I went from small Cambridge, and that's me there, punting down the river, and you can see me in a bus driving just about that. So that's and that was it. So London was good for me, but then I had to spread my wings and fly away. So goodbye England, hello world, and this was 2016, I think. I went travelling, ended up in New Zealand for about 1 year, and you can see me again here walking towards the camera. This is me, obviously filming out everyone. Which one? The one at the front with the stick. The guy behind me, it's my wife. And then after 1 year, we got a bit paranoid. We need jobs again, and then we came to Bangkok. And somehow, I still don't remember, I met Yosin, and he gave me a job at Seven Peaks. And actually, this is my only job I've had in Thailand, and I've been here almost 5.5 years. And this is the original Seven Peaks logo. So make of it what you will.
I like that logo.
Really? It looks like a...
Got too excited.
Yeah, so in my time, I've been really lucky to be able to work with a whole bunch of brands and get loads of experience. And you know, from the very beginning all the way up, these are touch points that I've had. Loads of different companies, and I've only ever been learning from other people. There's not a lot of UX learning I've done online or at uni, so you really can learn everything on the job, and that's exactly what we do. So that's me. So my name's Andy. I'm going to sit down, sit on the panel, and it's nice to meet you all. Thanks for coming.
Do you want to introduce Jeremie or
Jeremie from Morphosis. Our new friends. Come on in.
Can we do high fives?
I'm not going to go through like all the slides because there are like 45 slides or more. But we can. Morphosis was created because I was a designer. I was like very passionate about it. I used to work as a freelancer for like many years. And one time I decided to start growing the agency. And I wanted to do like design and to really become one of the best design agencies in Bangkok. And because I was very passionate about this, I could really find the right talents in Bangkok for that. And so we kept growing, and we worked for many people over the years. At the beginning in my career, I worked mostly with mostly startups, but as the agency became bigger and bigger, after we had to take much bigger clients, so we had the chance to work with Mastercard, JP Morgan, and so on. So some very cool project we work for. So we're very specialized in UX and UI design, and even design thinking now. So we really spend a lot of time with our clients to try to find out exactly who they are and what they want to do exactly, what their problems, and try to find a solution, a direction for the business later. This is Paul, by the way. Say hello, Paul. So yeah, we do a lot of different things from user testing to research, both qualitative and quantitative. And the idea is really trying to find out what's the numbers at the end, what's the data, and trying to quantify this and try to increase the conversion over time so that we can get better results over time. Yeah, I'm not going to go through everything. There's a lot of things in there. Yeah, okay. Who's the next one?
Andy. Andy. Great. Craig. Offended us already.
I have one.
I can see. My apologies. Got away.
I've come back.
Yeah, I know. Nobody does Someone told you sound like a pimp.
No. Okay.
Oh,
Hello,
so sad.
everyone. I am the dude. I'm here. I'm there. I'm on the door, and I'm here. So I'm everywhere. That was an accident. This picture. So I'm Craig. I am from Scotland. I will try my best to talk slow to help everybody. English, proper English. At the moment, I am a principal product manager, but I have a background in development. It's a bit messy. It's a bit tricky. My slides are not as fun as Andy's. So, I started out as back-end developer. It wasn't so fun. It was boring. I went on to try and figure out how to move my career forward. So I started looking at front-end development, started looking at middleware, and then got interested in how we actually design these systems. They're normally ugly, and I took a liking to the design part. I eventually came here in Seven Peaks. I've been helping Seven Peaks, I guess, for 4.5 years recently. I just left, might be back tomorrow. But I was a senior designer, and I was also a user experience lead, which is why my face is on the door. But we worked on a lot of projects, myself and Andy. There was a lot of challenges building a design system into a design company and trying to compete against this guy because they're very, very good at what they do. So it's a lot of challenges. And one of the things that we discovered was, we can't just keep on thinking the way what we previously thought about design. We have to keep on iterating and discovering new things. Next slide. Okay, so at the moment, now, my current job, I am working at True. Not really True, we have Reville. Now, has anyone heard of this product?
Yes.
Okay, some people, okay.
You, Chris.
So, this is a very new challenge for me. It's a new challenge for a lot of people who have come with us. And we're taking on new things we've never done before. This is the first time I think that True have actually tackled a product like this.
Yes.
Changing processes, changing how we think. And it's very, very complicated, a lot of difficult things. But our main product at the moment that we're focused on is VRoom. So we actually have 3 main products that we will tackle, which is VRoom, VWork, VLearn, and it basically is bringing enterprise level software into the market. So this is completely different from what we've done before, and sometimes I do regret not staying in 7 Peaks. So there's that. Right? So one of the biggest challenges, which we'll talk about today, is things like, modernization of systems and our thinking, design thinking itself, and how do we think about the customer first. So these are things that we're now tackling, that we're trying to understand, and there's a lot of things that you never hear people talk about. So this is what I want to bring up today, hopefully. And I'm obliged to do this, maybe legally, to show you can download the product now. It's in the app stores.
Best icon you've ever seen, right?
This is new.
That's beautiful.
Right. Yeah, so we've got 3 products, but this is the one that we're focused on at the moment. Yeah, that's me. Simple. Thank you.
Next we have Mr. Graham.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to talk about the why of design thinking, why we do what we do at DSA, and then I'll come on and talk about the how. Buckminster Fuller, 1948, was teaching at Black Mountain College, which is a very experimental, very innovative design school in North Carolina. And he developed the geodesic dome, which you may have seen. Buckminster Fuller was a futurist and a philosopher and an architect and a designer, and he famously said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And this very much resonates with what we think the future of design education is. My builds don't work. Yeah, the builds on the PowerPoint deck. Never mind.
Your animation.
My animation. It's okay. I'll wing with it. So our practice-based projects are all framed around wicked problems in Southeast Asia. Wicked problems is a concept that was first published by Horst Reville in the 1970s. A wicked problem is a problem that you cannot solve. If you try to solve it, there will be another problem. Poverty, pollution, the environment. And this is where design thinking comes in. In the 1960s, the American sociologist and psychologist Herbert Smith characterized design not so much as a physical process, but as a way of thinking. And this is where we start to get design thinking and wicked problems merging. And this was first published by Richard Buchanan in 1992. This is a landmark essay, Wicked Problems in Design Thinking. So it wasn't Stanford, it certainly wasn't IDEO, it wasn't the Design Council in London, it wasn't the Royal Society of Arts. It was this landmark essay which connected wicked problems to design thinking. And these are the principles that we have today. And these competencies are very much what we do at DSA. We have our own common basic framework, and we look at insight development, experimentation, imagination, modeling and prototyping, value creation, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And we do this for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to advance industry. We don't believe that NGOs and charities will save the world on their own, but free market economics will. And I mean free market economics in the Adam Smith sense. Free of privilege, and free of monopoly, and free of artificial circumstances. We also believe that the future of design education is non-degree education. And we question, why should 21st century user experience designers be taught by 20th century teachers to a 19th century curriculum and technique and an 18th century calendar? So what we need to do is connect design to people, technology and organisation to deliver user experience that is both accessible and egalitarian. That was the why. How do we do it? Very simple. We hardwire hand, heart and head. This is the design of design. And this is the DSA experience. And we do this through critical engagement, rhetoric and imagination. And if you want to know more, you can go to the DSA website or hit me up on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Hello. Right, so we're going to start the panel now, right? So guys, do you want to sit down? I'll stand up. Make it easy. So grab a seat, get comfy. If you're feeling sexy, go for this part here. But don't show your soles of your feet, because that's rude. It's in Thailand. Aha! I'm cultured, you see.
It's the worst 90s boy band reunion you'll ever see.
So what was your hit in the 1990s, and what happened to you? All right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, have you been thinking about your question? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Okay, get thinking. Right. So ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do is we're going to ask the panel some questions. I'll kindly ask the panel, try and keep it under a minute for your answer, and try and keep it practical. So one of the things that we're very, very lucky to, and you're extremely lucky to have, is these experts here. These people who are not only design leaders, but they've done it for many, many years. So you're going to get a lot from this. So think about what you want to ask. So we'll start off, probably go left to right, or if you want to, whatever you want to do. So we've got a question here. So what is design thinking, and what impact can it have on the business? So keeping it simple, what is design thinking?
I guess design thinking, what impact it has on a business. Yes, on a business. I guess the design thinking impact on a business, it means that you're going to do a lot of work up front to make sure that before you build anything, you're not going to waste any money when you build it, and afterwards you can prove that what you've built is going to work because you've already tested it with people. through design thinking. So you've empathized with people, you've kind of defined what the problem space is, then you've explored what the solution is, and then you've built and tested it before you put it into production. So for me, the impact on the business is a huge saving in money and actual value, I think, to a product that you plan to build.
Yeah, nice. So what Andy's saying is kind of like, make sure you try it before you buy it, sort of thing. So coming up with the ideas and then ideating it before you put it into practice. I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's Craig. Have you got for us?
That's hard.
Is that why you've got a pillow on you?
You're going to run out of ideas. Calm down, boy. Okay. From a different approach.
Can't make this up.
This is all live. Okay, so from a different approach, I think the impact on the business can also be that you're onboarding internally as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people who wouldn't understand design thinking before, they wouldn't understand how to support that, they wouldn't have the infrastructure. So when you do design thinking properly and you have the right people to engage and you bring everyone on board, then there's an alignment internally, which again helps the business move in the right direction, but it also helps train this kind of thinking into everything that you do.
Nice. I like how you're saying training into everything you do, because again, design thinking should be a methodology, it's a purpose, it's a way of working. Brilliant. Jeremie?
I think they've said most of it already. What's very important with design thinking is that you want to define the problem first.
Yes.
If you define the wrong problem, you're going to get the wrong solution later.
Yeah.
Now, to say that it can save money, it's true. You save a lot of time, so instead of spending 6 months to 1 year to develop something and just hope it's going to work, you can try to get some validation early on. Now, it's not true that you can always get the right validation straight away, because it's still just an experiment. And you just test with a few people, but at least you can reduce the risk of failure early on. So that's why we do it. Now, like you said, you can test it internally as well. It's a methodology, as you said.
Sure.
So you can apply this to anything. For example, you want to restructure your HR. You could use a lot of the same methodologies within your company to try to apply some of these exercises and try to find direction early on.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's to emphasize with users, so that you can do that with HR, talking to employees. What do you want? Creating some workshops and basically refine everything with the help of users, which in that case are employees.
Yeah.
Through a series of exercises.
Yeah.
And then get to the bottom of it, which is what design thinking does as well. You try to really understand deeply, know what they want.
Yeah, the day-to-day stuff.
That the exercise helps you to do that.
Awesome. I like what you say. Is even it doesn't have to be necessarily a design problem. It could be an infrastructure problem. It could be HR problem, whatever you want. So having these stages, having these steps, really helps you do that. Graham, what have you got for us?
Thank you. I'm going to be very provocative here, and I'm going to argue that design thinking is a great way to justify your fees.
Yeah, I won't argue with
It's
that.
a great marketing tool. It does have wonderful methods in it. I think being able to frame the question and getting the answers to the question quickly are very useful. I think as long as we're mindful that it's not a religion, this is a tool. It's arguably a method, but it's something that can be scaled and adapted to your own processes and your own operations. Okay. Whether this model actually works in this part of the world, I don't know.
What makes you question that?
Because I think the culture of the likes of Stanford and IDEO, and they've tried here, and they failed. IDEO had to get bailed out by Hakuhodo in Tokyo. So I think the challenge is, how do we get design further up the strategic conversation in Southeast Asia? I think if we can do that, and if we can push it to a more strategic level, rather than when it actually comes to us, often it's too late. So it's actually up to all of us to try and embed this culture of questioning what is the role of design, and design thinking, I think, can be, the caveat for that, but in a kind of slightly different look and feel to perhaps what we first thought it was.
Thank you very much. Quick question here to the audience. Who here is process orientated? Who would you say would don't give me a task unless it's a process? Hand up. One. Okay, yeah. So I'm one of them. So if I can just give a little bit of opinion for me on this. For me, design thinking was something I discovered that helped me not worry about the blank screen. File and new. You know when you do that? File and new, and you're like, oh, I've got to design this. What do I do? Right, okay, empathize, done. And then it started me off. So that was one thing from a practical point of view that design thinking did for me was I knew where to start. Right. So, yeah, Jeremie, if you want to start for this one. What are some, and it's a big question, what are some things that people misunderstand about design thinking or get completely wrong?
I think they just don't get it since the very beginning.
Designอะไร?
But it's fine. They don't need to understand the concept of design thinking.
Yeah.
Like, no, when we take them through some workshops,
yeah,
we don't need to mention design thinking as well.
Yeah, we just
it's a tool for ourselves. It's our stuff. Like, no, we use Figma or some of the tools. They don't need to know which tools we're using. What matters for them is the result.
Yeah.
Like now, when you ask, yeah, it's a way to justify our fees. Yeah, I kind of disagree with that because we offer values there. So when we enter in the workshop there, clients come with a lot of bias. And they think, okay, we want to build this, and we think users are these people, and they just think they're right. And it's normal because if you do business for long enough, you forget a lot of things. You just get stuck in your own way.
Yeah.
What design thinking does is that we can help them to refocus on what's really the problem. Again, coming back to the problem, you say that's your problem. Let's just change it. Let's just question it. But we don't need to say again talking about design thinking. We just ask questions, and through again a series of exercise, they realize quickly that actually we don't really know our personas. Or no, they say our unique selling points or value proposition is this one. Okay, let's just analyze where you fit in that market. And then they realize, all their competitors are doing this. So
Have you had that? Have you had an
all the time? Almost all the time.
Nice.
It's just a very common thing for clients because they're just stuck in their own ways. And so we are there to help them to refocus, find their value proposition, find who are their users, set some goals as well. Personas can be sometimes they come with 5, 7, or 10 personas. We see things like that. And so, what's your goal? Is that acquisition? Is that retention? Do you want to start making some profits? And so, who can help you reach that goal within your personas? And now, if you say, okay, that if you want to do acquisition, it's 15 to 20 years old, let's say. That's your persona. What's their reprime? And so, why do we need to care about people 35, 50? If they're not going to grow, if it's not going to help your goal to do acquisition, okay? Once they get there, then it's easy to start to reframe their mind and say, what about the direction? Design thinking is you diverge, you open their mind, you let them consider all the different options, and we do that through moderation.
Yes.
So asking questions meaning why is time, why is this, why that, what about this, and we keep asking questions. We open their mind, and once they start to see, actually you're right, maybe we should do this, and then when they start to see the direction, we actually don't need to give them the solution. The solution comes on its own.
Nice. I like how you said it's a lot about asking questions. Craig, so what do you feel is something that, from your experience when you've actually been working with a client, because you've worked with a lot of clients, has there only been times that you've thought, okay, I'm going to do design thinking, but they totally didn't get it, and how did you get through that?
I would say that the biggest misconception is people think it's graphics.
Okay.
Literally, you say design thinking, we're going to do a workshop, we're going to look at your business.
I'll get my crayons.
No, they think why?
Post-it notes, that's design thinking, post-it notes.
Right? So, a lot of the times, myself and Andy have been in this situation a lot. You go in, they start drumming you with what they believe we should do now.
Right.
By the end of the workshop, you've got this line across the board where you're saying everything below that does not matter right now. And that kind of, for me, brings home that people actually think design thinking is only graphical. It's only interface. And it's a much more than that. It's of processes, methodologies, about adaptation. And with these companies, I think a couple of them, I will not name drop, but there's a couple of them where they've come back, after our project.
Ah, really?
And we can see the change.
Uh-huh.
And we can see that now they're thinking they've done some homework beforehand. They've done these workshops.
Open their mind, as Jeremie said.
Yes, exactly. So when they come back next time, they know what to expect and they understand the whole thing. But sometimes you have to go through that hard part.
Yeah.
You have to sit there and you have to say to them, let's step back a bit. Let's just put everything on the board that you think you know. And let's question absolutely everything. And I think we've had that one time. We went to an office. We've done this.
Oh, yeah.
We've done this before.
Anybody heard that? Anybody else heard that? Like, work with the client? Yeah, we've done this, we got this, we know our client.
Yeah.
Our target audience is everybody. Target everybody, target nobody.
So when we question everything, then you see quite quickly, maybe we didn't actually do it. We've done something similar, it's like reenacting it, but they never actually questioned everything properly.
Have you ever said, I told you?
A few times.
Behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Oh, no worries.
Sorry, I was just going to add,
Please.
I think it offers objectivity in a very subjective industry. Most design research is qualitative because we don't have the time or the sample size to actually do quantitative studies.
How about that?
So we have to rely as much on empirical data, which is objective, and I think design thinking can get us to a point where there is a mutual agreement and a consensus that this is the right way to go forward, rather than, oh, you want it in blue, okay, fine, and that's a dialogue. You can counteract difficult questions and scope creep on projects by actually asking the right questions and getting some empirical qualitative data and then pushing the project further into production.
Can I ask, with regards to what you said, can I ask, Graham, with regards to qualitative, quantitative, what part does experience play of the people who are facilitating the design thinking workshops or process?
I don't think it should facilitate at all. I think it should be ran like a market research focus group. The moderator is there not to include bias and actually have the results.
Green? Oh, really? Sure.
Have the results from the respondents. That's a big ethical question, actually. And if we look at the principles of qualitative group moderation, it's very clear that the moderator should not offer any bias on that sample. So I personally would prefer to see a lot of anonymity in the moderator rather than steering and potentially getting false data.
Okay, thank you. Right, next question. Oh, please, Andy, sorry, my apologies.
Don't forget me, Carl.
Sorry, mate.
My one thing is it's just not a linear process either. I think the misconception is that you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, but actually you're supposed to jump around. You can do some, do some testing or something. You go back and re-prototype it and do that. So, but that's it really. That was my one thing. Is the common misconception of design thinking is it's linear, but it's not linear. It's a jumping process. You're supposed to go back and around and use all the steps you can in any order you need to.
That's nice.
And that's.
Have you ever had so let's say, for example, you do prototyping. Have you ever started there and it unblock a design problem? So right at the end, we've got testing, but a little bit before that, say prototyping.
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, you can prototype before you even jump into Figma, right? Just my idea at the very start is sketch it all up quickly and show someone, and they go, actually, this is nothing wise. Okay, that means you tested it, then you jump back again, right?
Yeah.
And it can be really quick to jump from 1 to 2 to 3, and it doesn't have to be weeks. It can be done in a few hours, right? Yeah. You could do the whole process in 2 hours if you really had to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can literally sit with someone and do the whole thing, or you can spend months doing a design thinking process. Yeah. So it's not boxed, I think.
Can I stay with Andy with this one? So let's say, for example, is there anybody here part of a company that's not doing design thinking as a process? Right? You're proud of that? Like,
really, I've been making it up.
Right, wait, there is ways.
Call security on
No,
this guy.
it's Tom.
It's only having a free beer.
But is anybody here working for a company that you feel is not doing design thinking? I'm going to put my hand up because I'm in one. Okay, cool. There's more people. My boss is next to me. Shut up. I didn't mean it. So Annie, let's say, for example, for these people who don't have it going on, but we feel after today we've been inspired, right? How did they start? How did they get involved? How did they make it part of the culture?
Google.
Good answer.
I mean, you can find anything online these days, and there is unlimited resources and things to do. Recently, in our team at Seven Peaks, we're using the Interaction Design Foundation to get everybody certified in the team, and we've just done design thinking course. Right, and it doesn't take that long, and it really is almost a deep dive into something that it's not maybe for beginners. There are different things to do, but I would recommend taking a short course.
Yeah.
And you really can start to evangelize these things into a company and start, even if you start with one of the processes, by empathy, but maybe you don't do the rest of it, then at least you've started with one thing, right? Yeah,
I like it. One of the things I like what Andy said about Googling, which is not so facetious, but with regards to each of the processes in design thinking, there's lots of tasks you can do to empathize, right? So there's loads of different ways of doing that. Mr. Craig, how do we get it started? So with our company, right, we're true. We're not doing design thinking. We're prototyping, delivering, done. Prototyping, delivering, done. We're not doing any empathy.
It's
How do we get it going?
So I would say ask questions and look for people in the company who you can bring into your thinking about design thinking. Because otherwise you will be alone in your company. Nobody understands what design thinking is, and you're just going to be fighting that uphill. So I would start asking questions about everything, like what is design thinking to me, to the company, what's the point of it, how would it affect the company, and start bringing in other people that may align with this.
So like a champion group, and then
because what you'll find is once you start speaking to everyone, not just designers, developers, even like POs, management, there'll be the odd couple who will understand what you're trying to get at, and they will help you. They will start bringing that up in conversation, having meetings, having workshops, and then at some point you'll have enough people to actually start
a mutiny.
Yeah.
What do we want? Design thinking. When do we want it?
Nobody joined me.
One person did. Shut up.
One.
Back. Thank you.
It wasn't Tom. Okay. Ask questions. Find other people who may also have questions similar to how do we change things, how do we improve things, and then build from there.
Brilliant. And and just to further your point, would you agree it's better to show not tell? So
definitely, yeah. If you talk to or at people, they're not going to be receptible.
Apart from these people, they're loving this.
Yeah. So everyone, don't be scared. Show people. No, you have to. I think.
Yeah.
You gotta actually show them how to and how to ask the question. I think someone say key questioning. You gotta ask the right questions. You can ask multiple questions, but at some point you will understand the question you need to ask.
Yes.
Right. So you just gotta do it. You can't sit in your house in the mirror and rehearse on TikTok or something.
Jeremie, question for you with this one. So you started off as a freelancer. You built an agency. Worked very, very, very hard. I know how hard you worked, and you've now done this. So how are you bringing design thinking into your business from your level? Like, that it's something that you believe in, but how are you making sure that the new junior designer on the road who just started that is doing what he's told of him?
You just got to show them, I think, for design thinking, because you can read from Google, you can learn like from Udemy or some other stuff, but moderation is not easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of experience to ask the right questions, as you say.
Yes.
It takes a very long time. So for me, I've done that work now for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Doing enough stakeholders interviews with clients, you learn to ask the right questions quickly. And what matters really at the end of the day is that it's a business. It's not about the users. That's what I always say, that we learn about users because of the business. Business, if they don't make money, if there's no business, there's no users at the end of the day. So it's always about the business. So I'm a very curious person, so I like to ask a lot of questions about the business. Sometimes even taking a tangent during the design thinking workshops. When they start to talk about the business, I'm not going to cut them. goes through the full exercise. I was just going to let them talk. It's like, okay, so you're doing this, and
Right.
how did you get started?
Yeah.
And then you learn a lot of things around the business.
Yeah.
And this information is very valuable.
Mm.
If you really understand the business, you understand their problems, one more time, you understand their challenges, you understand what they've tried before as well.
Yeah.
And then after you can start to see, okay, so maybe that could be the direction.
Mm.
And then when you get to know that more about users, and you can do that, interviewing people at the same time. Again, it's not linear. You can start to do some workshops with clients to get some good understanding of the business and users and competition.
Yeah.
Do some research later to try to validate some of this. Come back to the workshops and go a bit deeper with the clients. So it's never linear. Now to teach that to someone junior is very hard. It's just very, very hard.
Yes, of course.
It takes some experience as well, like business experience. If you did enough projects over time, you get a much better idea of what questions you can ask, and you can go deeper into the questions.
Yeah. If I may just another point on that, one of the reasons you may say, work with Morphosis, which is, very high quality, and the cost of that is equivalent. And then you've got the people, well, I can do a design workshop for you for 10,000 baht. Oh, it's cheaper, but you don't get the experience. Graham, how would you advise for people here to because you mentioned how design thinking is not just only a methodology, but a way of thinking, and it's a way of being. So how do we get that into our culture?
Well, I think you can do it at scale. I think you can do it. You can be an army of one, or you can be, a startup company. But the key takeaway is, if you want to understand the animals, you need to go out into the jungle. You need to go out and you need to do street intercepts, and you can do this very, very quickly. You can do it in a sprint. It will take 10 people in a street intercept to validate what you're doing is correct. But you have to be able to actually, talk to the respondent or the end user. It doesn't take a large organisation to do that. You just go out and you can incentivize. You can, here's a bunch of stickers, or here's some movie tickets. Go and do a street intercept. It's perfectly acceptable to do that.
So, next question for you then, for you as well. So, let's say, for example, you're finding people who you like. You're showing, not telling. You're asking the right questions and stuff like that. The question is does this whole process, because what Andy was saying was, you can kind of sit down with a designer and do it in 2 hours, right? You could get something. It might not be the best one, but you could get something. Does design thinking dilute design?
Yes.
Good.
Very, very. And I'll tell you why. It's because design is inherently messy. Innovation happens from an intuitive leap. It doesn't happen by incremental steps. That's the sciences. Design fits awkwardly somewhere between the sciences and the humanities. And yes, it does dilute it. I've been bumping into this design thinking thing for 10 years, and the moment that Stanford get rid of these 5 hexagons, I would be so delighted.
Oh, I've got to have the hexagon. That's all over Google Images.
Do you know how
Andy told us to Google it.
Do you know how much they charge per user, Stanford, to do the bootleg boot camp? 13,000 US.
I'll do it for 12.
It remains still elitist and exclusive.
So, Jeremie, do you believe that this process can dilute design, in that you're overcooking before you actually make the food?
With wrong moderation, yes, I think. But again, it's just a tool, so it depends how you use that tool.
And if you use it, yeah. Okay, great. I like this. We've got just a quick fire round.
I would say absolutely. And the reason is because, like you say, design is inherently messy, right? And quite often we try to overwork ideas, concepts, whatever else. We do that in everything we do, from concept to actually building stuff. And when we implement something like design thinking properly, or even the beginning of it, then we start taking away from that overthinking. When we start thinking about other things that we wouldn't have thought about before.
Brilliant.
We don't need to then heavily depend on that design.
Okay. Andy?
I don't know, has everybody seen the design process, the huge squiggle? It's like really and then towards the end it thins out, and that's basically how every project starts.
Yeah.
Maybe at 7 peaks, I'm not sure, but it's it's so true. At the very beginning, you don't know what question to ask, who you're going to talk to, what the business does, there's so many questions.
Yeah.
And I think design thinking process, it just funnels you in the right direction by telling you, I validate this because I've learned it and it's true.
Yes.
Next, I validate this, I've learned it and it's true. And it will get thinner and thinner and thinner until you get that line, and that's it. And that it dilutes in that way, right? That's my opinion on that one.
Nice. All right. Okay. Question for ladies and gentlemen, and I do want you to answer this question, please. Who likes? Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Who likes chickens? Put your hand up. Chickens. Okay, good. Who likes eggs? Okay. Who thinks the chicken became before the egg? Okay. So my question to the panel is, when we're doing design thinking, do we think about the users first, or do we think about the company, the business? Chicken or egg? Over to you, Andy.
Which one's the chicken?
That's a good question. Okay, we'll say the chicken. No, I'm going to say the chicken is the business. And right?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think for me, and this, I feel like this is quite a subjective thing to ask, right? But for me, I think it's going to be the business, because the business they're coming
He's trying to please Jeremie now.
Well, but they're coming to us with problems, so you know what I mean, and we have to start with them to understand who their users with their problems are.
Yeah.
I think we often design for our customers, and we think about them so much, but then actually we're designing for our customers and users, really.
Yes.
You know, and there's a lot more people involved than just, so that it's like, for me, I think the chicken would come first, because the chicken brings the problems, not the egg.
Nice. Mr. Craig, chicken or egg, company or user?
A bit of both. But I have a different way of thinking on this one. And the reason is because, and as Carl will testify to, sometimes we're in a unique situation where you have to think about the end consumer, not just about the client that you have, and you have to also think, like, if we dump 20 million back into this project, what is the benefit to the company? Are we going to lose our business if it doesn't work out? And there has to be that little bit of thinking. Do we align a little bit with these goals from the business? And that's where it becomes very, very difficult, and you have to wait out to a point, right? Because you might have this great product, but then the market that you're selling to is maybe really, really small. Then you have to come back and ask that question, like, does it make sense for the business? But you shouldn't put the business entirely in front of what you've just done.
Got it. Jeremie.
It's both.
Jeremie.
It's always a mix anyway, like, you know, there's sometimes you need to offer, like, you know, some stuff that users want, because that adds some value that can help you with acquisition, retention, and then that's one of the features you can, like, monetize, and this feature can make some money. There's some stories like, you know, I think, like, you know, Facebook or Twitter, which is a bit the opposite. They created a perfect tool for users without thinking about business for like many years, and they found how to monetize this much later, almost like 10 years later. So there's always like this story. Sometimes you can start with your users, you build a perfect tool for them, and business might come later, but not always. Okay, so it's always a mix. It's never like black and white, I would say.
Okay.
But for most of our clients that want to make money, because they need to pay us. Yes, so they need to monetize straight away. They cannot wait 10 years on Facebook to make some money.
Thank you. Graham.
It depends who pays for it. If it's a commercial entity, then the interest is in the business. If you are funded by Rockefeller Trust or Wellcome in the UK, it depends on who pays for it. I'll briefly give you an example. There's a project between the Danish Academy and the Mahidol Oxford School of Tropical Diseases. The project was called Healthy Homes, and they took the architecture of Southeast Asia and realized that the climate is exactly the same in Sub-Saharan Africa, but Sub-Saharan Africa has far more malaria, far more deaths, and the reason being is just the way that the buildings are designed and the homes. So, you know, we have buildings on stilts here, and we have a lot of airflow through, you know, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. So the Wellcome Trust and Mahidol Oxford took these architectural designs with the Danish Academy and put them into Tanzania, and malaria was reduced and it saves people's lives.
Wow.
That's an example of design thinking funded by the Wellcome Trust.
Right.
So it depends. Who
So chicken or egg? Come on, Mr. G. Come on, G-man.
Chuk chuk.
Chuk chuk. Awesome. Okay, right. So we're getting to the point now. We know the reason. We can feel the reason for design thinking. We know there's different things. Let me ask a little bit more of a practical question. Now, I understand it depends on the project, but I'd like you to try your best to think about how we can explain to the audience how long does design thinking take? And I do mean from a typical workshop. So if you've got a new client, we come in, say, hey, we want to do design thinking, we want to talk about our malaria problem or whatever it might be. What's a general sort of small, medium, large time frame for the process to go through? Graham, please.
Well, I suspect it should be not a dependency of realizing the bigger picture, that, you know, in order to create change and make change, you actually need to produce this artifact. So it is something I think that can be done quite quickly, you know, in an agile sprint, providing you're getting the answers to the questions. It comes down to what are the questions you're trying to answer, and if you can clarify those and if you can get some validation, I think you can go pretty quick off the blocks.
We're talking days, weeks, hours, months?
I would say no more than 4 days
Fair play.
for any project.
Fair play. Mr. J.
Again, it depends.
It depends. I knew you'd say that, which is why I prefaced it with small, medium, large.
It depends. No, it's again. It's true. It's true.
It's a tough question.
It's very tough to answer. So we've done like some design thinking workshops like for like 3 weeks with some clients,
Wow.
and then combined with like a lot of UX research in between as well.
Yeah. Free flying.
Actually 5 weeks for a project. So it was very long, and like no validating a solution at the end. Sometimes for some workshops we try to apply bits of design thinking, like at least
Yeah.
if you don't have the cash, like the budget or the time, can they say
Yeah.
trying to at least get some value out of it. So applying some of these exercises. So in one afternoon, we get a pretty good idea of where they want to go. Like at least one or 2 afternoons. We don't do a full day usually because it's very tiring.
Oh,
And like,
yes.
it's a lot of brainstorming, so you need to stay fresh for this kind of stuff. But they say in 2 afternoons, you can get a pretty good idea already of like, what should be the direction? Do we get any validation? No, we don't get validation. So this is out of the door. Now, if the client is okay for that, yeah, within 3, 4, 5 days,
Yeah.
we can easily prototype something, test it, validate it with some users. So yeah, 4 or 5 days is usually minimum amount of time for full design thinking workshop.
Thank you, Jay. Great. From experience, by the way, if you can think of something you've actually done.
So the first thing, design thinking is forever. Once you start, it never stops. But for the workshops, in my experience, we could knock one out in 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days, I think, is optimal for us, in my experience, anyway. But we've had a very different experience in 7 Peaks, I think, we've not had luxuries that maybe other companies have, so we've managed to adapt it, which is really, really good.
Right.
So 2 or 3 days.
Brilliant. Andy, anything from recent? Anything you can think of something recent you did?
No, but
Oh yeah, you don't work. Do you?
I don't work. But I would have to put a curveball and say it's as long as it needs to be be honest, because if you do a 6-month project, then you are going to keep doing your prototyping, testing. You got the results from your test. Oh, we need to change it. You're going to go back again and ideate on something and change it. And so, I would actually say from small, medium, and large, I'd say it could be large if it has to be as big as it needs to be.
Right.
You are always using the design thinking process for everything. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, is anybody doing a design
Sorry,
workshop
can-
sprint now?
Can I just add something?
Please, sorry, yes.
So when Andy is right, it's something you want to test something, but you don't test everything at once. So usually it's just a flow or features, a new feature you want to get in, or if it's new business, at least a core MVP where it could look like, and trying to test the direction. And you're not going to test everything as well. You're just going to test one of the main features that can users might want and can generate business. So later you need to keep applying this.
Okay.
But it's very hard to convince clients to keep doing this all the time as well. So it needs to be integrated fully into your processes for this to work.
Let me jump on that one. This is a different question from what we've got planned, but let me ask this. What's the difference between kind of what you said? What is the difference between design thinking and a design sprint? There's an interesting one. Guys, who's heard of design sprints? Hand up. Okay. Who are you other people? Did you think it was just free beer, right? That's free beer. I sell noodles, so I don't know why I'm here, but it's free beer. But yeah, okay. Design thinking. Who's heard of design thinking? Hands up. Okay, good. Okay, right. Who's heard of a design sprint? Okay, wonderful. Good. All right.
Okay, design thinking is it's a thought process, right? It's a thought process. Design sprint is something you actually do. That's how I define it, right? Like a sprint is something you actually follow and do.
Okay.
Right, but the design thinking is it's just a thought process that you follow.
Okay.
It's a bunch of methodologies that you can choose from, blah blah blah. But a sprint, you know, you have to open the sprint, groom the sprint, close the sprint, cut, and move it on.
Cut. Great, mate.
I think.
Thank you, mate. That's a great answer. I love it.
So, in a design sprint, there are things that you do, and there are tools that you use.
Yes, Andy. Craig.
I am not
He's
doing
just choosing me his answer.
I'm stealing it. No, but you do have tools, right?
Yes.
And we have ways of thinking. There's different things we can do. That's inside of a design sprint.
Right.
It doesn't live exclusively there, but it is a tool that we can utilize and use during a design sprint.
Right.
So I would say it's inside of it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is said very well. Design sprint is more like not just execution at the end of the day. You just go through the task that you work given. But design thinking helps you solve a problem.
Yes.
And like not give you a direction. But after you've got to prioritize. So it's very important to prioritize. Like what he's not listening to me.
I'm
Listen
sorry.
to me, man.
I'm trying to find how much time we got left. I'm so sorry.
Okay. But yeah, it's more like a methodology. It gives you like no direction, like no some type of solution to move forward. Then you prioritize, and then after you can, once you prioritize and that you've got all the full requirements.
Yes.
Then after you can move on to design sprint. You break it down in design sprints, and you just execute. That's very different.
Okay. Thank you.
Just my 5 cents, and I think we're agreeing on this. My take is design sprints are an incremental process.
Mm-hmm.
Design thinking is a tool which can potentially turn vapor into substance, but it's not necessarily an incremental process.
Right. Graham, please stick with the camera, microphone for this one. I've got a really good question. That actually came from you. And I'm really looking forward to asking this. What is the future for design thinking in Southeast Asia? Like how are we going to embody it? How is it something that's not, a cult? How is it something that actually helps us build better products for people? Answer that. What's your question?
I think it needs to be considered. We need to take the principles and elements of design thinking and I think work towards design thinking light. Something that's very scalable, something that's very flexible. If we go back to the principles and elements that Richard Buchanan talked about in 1992, that's far from what we do now. I think the key takeaway is also we need to consider accessibility and inclusivity with the future of design thinking. Are there non-verbal ways that we can do this? Can we do this through haptic skills? Can we do this through the rich fabric that Thailand has in the crafts industry, for example? Are there ways that we can actually customize this to reflect the embedded variety of craft and making and doing in Thailand? That would be quite interesting to look at.
And Jeremie, what is the future for design thinking in Morphosis and 7 Peaks?
We want to make it part of processes.
Yes.
For everything.
Yes.
Not just for our clients, but also internally. Now that is easier said than done.
Yeah,
it
sure.
takes some time to change habits. And there's some misconception about what design thinking is. Everyone thinks, okay, I can throw a workshop, like no, and that's it. And I did a design thinking workshop. At the end of the day, we try to solve a problem again. And like no, did that workshop solve that problem?
Yes.
And that's always a big question. It's like, no, did we really got something out of that? It's always very hard to quantify.
Yes.
Because people can be biased. Like you said, like NISA to be like totally objective and to be able to like not influence something. So you never know, like, if you're really having an impact or not. It's very
my next question as well. Well, great. Yeah, please, I'd love to hear your answer.
The one for Morphosis and Sunpeaks, or the other one?
The other one. Well, no. I mean, like, what do you? From, I mean, like,
And
I was going to
Southeast Asia?
call you a young. You look young.
Thank
like,
you.
You're a young design leader. So
25.
he moisturizes well.
I do.
Uses Amaca cream. So, what from your point of view, like you're a Scottish person living in Southeast Asia, what do you think the future is for design thinking here? Is it bright or is it cloudy?
So I've been here 13 years. When I came here,
10 in prison.
nobody knew anything about design. It was all system based. You have developers developing software,
That's true.
and that worked, right? It got us to where we are now. So that's not to be snuffed at. But in the last 5 years in particular, we have seen an uptake of...
Look at this event. Beautiful people.
Exactly. We've seen an uptake, a really sharp uptake, I think, of people willing to explore.
Yes.
And that will help us go even further. And I
Nice.
think going forward, I expect to see that companies, or at least the large ones for now, will rapidly try and move on this.
Brilliant.
I don't think they'll wait too long before
I think they
realizing.
already are. I think
Yeah.
they already are.
We're experiencing that now,
Yeah.
actually. But again, challenges, takes time, takes money, there's habits that need to be broken.
Yeah.
But I do expect it to sharply rise.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Andy, mate, last one.
I agree with Craig. I think it looks optimistic for me. I mean, you have to look at the agencies
Yeah.
that are now here that when I came 5 years ago weren't really here. It was like kind of kicking off. So, and now it's like they're part of a lot of,
Everyone's got design thinking.
everyone's
on their
got
website.
design. Yeah, it's all there. So every company's doing it, or they're trying to hire people in, or they're setting up their own teams, or they're hiring agencies. So I think the sky's the limit, really.
Awesome.
Maybe it's a little bit behind here. I think it is, but there's the only way is up, right? I think there's a lot to be learned from, especially with the international community as it comes into Thailand. Like, people are coming here, a lot more people are coming here now and teaching things like yourself, right? So that's it, and just be an evangelist. I think that's the way to push it.
Find your crew and get everyone together, right? Awesome. Okay, so over to questions. Is that right? Yeah. One thing, guys, if I may suggest for the people, and all of these people on this couch, a lot of experience, and we do a lot of interviews. If you put design thinking on your CV, what do you need when you're doing an interview? If you say you do design thinking, what do you need? Come on. Sticky notes, yes. No. Examples, right? Let me speak from experience as a higher up. If you're saying that you do design thinking, prove it. Give me some examples. Don't bullshit. Okay? Don't bullshit. Give me some examples. So if you are looking to join 7 Peaks on Morphosis, or even True, and you say, yes, I do design thinking because I came to this panel, give me examples.
Case study, empathy back.
Yeah. Right, over to questions. Hello.
I have a question.
How do I? Yes. Goodbye. You shall answer.
Hi. When you do design thinking, do you do it while the client is still a lead, or you've scoped it out with them and it's part of the scope, and you bill it on a 3-day basis of design thinking?
I think it's a good question. It's a very real question. I think we think about doing design thinking when we're thinking about the leads, right? They'll come to you with a problem and you'll be like, this is probably we need to start with some workshops. We need to understand the problem first, and they've already got a product. So we'll look at their product, and so I don't know if that's really design thinking, but it's planning for design thinking, right? But I don't know, you wouldn't really have started it. But already in your mind, you're probably going to know that I need to do these things. Yeah, you know the methods, and enable for you to say, this can take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. I guess part of that design thinking process is kind of looking ahead. Once I've done this step, what's the next step that I might need to do or definitely will do? So I guess the answer is a bit of yes and no. Yeah.
So I would say that quite often the experience comes out. So when a client sitting across the table saying, we want to do this, in my head I've seen all the projects that were successful, that failed, that were difficult, that were easy, that are similar, and I'm already in my head thinking, okay, that was really hard, so I have to, ask them this, I have to provide, this kind of workshop that would help us understand their infrastructure a little bit more, or their goals, or their end their end consumer. So the experience for me plays into it a lot at the very beginning, and a lot of people don't know this. Maybe you know this. There's meetings before the meetings.
Yes.
And it starts very early on. So even people like Jeremie or Justin, they'll be also thinking these things as well. We've had this project before, similar products, competing products. So it starts really early on for me about what we've done before. So we already have that design thinking at that point.
We used to do design thinking workshops. Not always called like that, but at least just say yeah, we need to do a few workshops during the lead time. So when we're talking to the clients at the beginning, we just sell, I think one afternoon or something like that to just get the requirements quickly, try to get the direction. It doesn't really work, to be honest, because you don't have enough time to really prioritize and break it down and go deeper into it. So now what we do is that we sell at least depending on size project between 2 to 4 weeks of discovery, we call it. And during the discovery, we do some stakeholder interviews with design thinking workshops. Then we break it down. Then we write a full requirement document. That's a document they can use later if they don't want to continue with us. And then after, when we have that full breakdown, that full requirement document, then we can go and tell them, okay, now we're going to need 4 months or 6 months or 1 year to design your full application for them.
Well, you can be very transparent. You've got the 5 stages that define, discover, test, etc., etc. Set your payment milestones to those 5 points. That's actually what certain very reputable companies doing this in North America have done for 10 years.
Does that answer your question?
You've
got to pay. If you answer quickly, gentlemen.
It's if you do add it to the scope, then how do you convince a client when they don't really know about design thinking? How do you convince them hey, you got to pay for this because this is work?
I think that comes down to the requirements definition, presumably. It comes down to actually managing the expectations of the stakeholders, and it could be stakeholders plural, depending on the scope of the project. But I think my learned friends are probably more qualified to answer that than me.
Yeah, Chris could probably answer
Chris
this.
is the man for this answer, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris. Come on.
Hi, I'm Chris, head of business development at Morphosis. In that situation, right, because we don't know scope, typically when we apply this, requirements can be broad, right, and they're not clear. Clients think that they have clear requirements, but they really don't know, right? We know that they don't know, right? In those types of situations, we have to be able to use design thinking as a tool, right, to be able to explore this further. So by diagnosing the fact that this requirement is not clear and proposing more effort towards design thinking, we are able to get a better end result, right, and move forward.
And basically it helps them save some money. So again, we can spend 6 months, 1 year to develop a project, right? As they might pay a fixed price. But what are the chances of this to succeed? If you don't try to get some validation early on. And so by convincing them to spend that time in these 2-3 weeks or less sometimes, it's okay, just 1 week sometimes, we can reduce that risk early on. So either you spend 6 months, 1 year to try to validate something, or you spend 1 week to 5 weeks to validate something. and then you see, then you get a very solid direction for your business. You save money.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing that's not been said as a good justification is onboarding of the teams. So you have a client, they've got this product, they want it built. We need time to understand what this is, what they are thinking as well. And if you don't spend that time asking these questions and understanding the product, then we will never be able to understand where we need to go and what tools we need to use to get there.
Briefing your teams as well.
Briefing the teams as well. So quite often, like, we've had experiences where maybe myself or Annie had been in a workshop. We drill out wants and needs. We drill out a lot of these, these scenarios, and then we come back with the team. We on board. We can have a second follow-up with the client and understand specific areas more. And that's a very good justification as well, because we need to know.
I agree. Cool. Next question. Next question. Oh, are you allowed to ask questions? Really?
I'm paying for the beer and pizza. So, I'll come with a difficult question. So now we're talking about the design methodology here, design thinking, right? So you're running workshops, you have clients, a lot of wish, I want to have this feature, I want to have that feature, I want to do this, right? So there's, when you look at a digital product, there's three parts, right? You have design, you have business, and you have the technical part of it, right? It's back to the chicken and egg, as in, if you kind of have a business case, you will never be able to fund and build a problem, right? Build a solution, right? So again, at the end of the day, you need to build a solution that actually is solving a real problem and people to adopt it, right? And it needs to be technical feasible. So again, I'm just to the panel here, where does the business come in? How do you help? Because again, one of the feedback here was don't have opinions, don't lead. But when do you tell the client that this does not make sense? Don't do this. As in, when do you guide a client? How do you consult a client, right? So one thing is from a business sense, and how do you structure it, and what is your business objectives? The other one is it technical feasible? And there are multiple ways of solving a problem, right? As in simple things like you can build a custom CMS, you can build a custom CRM, design out 50 screens, 100 screens,
Yep.
or you go through solution architecture and you figure out that, hey, we picked this off the shelf and we use that.
Yeah.
So I would just say that it's kind of the whole discovery. If you look at the product discovery, there's three aspects to it, right? So again, what's your thoughts on that?
May I, Justin, may I ask? Give me a direct question.
Oh, it was not direct enough.
No.
How do you tie business into the design thinking workshops, and how do you tie technical validation, feasibility into it?
Thank you.
I can probably answer part one, the technical validation. I think perhaps you guys can. This probably comes down to the way that the likes of McKinsey and Accenture work. It comes down to actually defining. We understand what your business problem is. This is how we're going to fix it. Or we understand what your business problem is. This is how we fixed it. You know, these decision makers have very short amounts of time. But rather than doing the show and tell and the reveal at the end, be more strategic and think more kind of McKinsey and Accenture about it and say, we understand everything you do. It's not about the look and the feel. The sole purpose of design and technology is to solve business problems. And I think strategic C-level decision makers understand, if we frame it around, this is the business problem that we're trying to fix for you, or we have fixed, the actual process and the design thinking is just research. This can go at the end. These are the three key areas, these are the questions, this is the analysis and insights, this is the impact, and these are the next steps.
Good question, huh?
Yeah, we try to get this involved more and more, not necessarily in the design thinking workshops, though we do some prioritization. So once we figure out okay, what do you want to achieve, what's your business goal, and try to get an understanding of who are the users and what they want and what can be the connection between the two, then we can give them some direction. And then it's all a question of prioritizing. So we've got some exercise we get them to prioritize and always get them back to the beginning on their goals that, don't forget, it's not to make profit right now. Like no, it's acquisition or it's retention. And so why do you need these features right now? It's not going to help you acquire more users right now. Now that said, it's always more complicated than that. Sometimes they want to do acquisition and retention and increasing their profit at the same time, right? They want to do different things. But usually it's just one goal, for example. And so if we stay, the goal can be totally different as well. It can just be to improve the user experience. The users complain about it, there's a very bad feedback about it, and they want to just improve that experience for them, okay? So that might be the goal. And just to stay focused on that, and everything else that's outside, that's not contributing to that goal, we can leave it on the side. And just try to get, and after, of course, there's deadline today, we had a meeting, and the same, if there's a very short deadline, what can we do to have an impact? The clients want all this, and do we need to build everything straight away? Or can we find some shortcuts? At the end of the day, if the client can still make money, it doesn't really matter if they have the full application. So there's a lot of choices we can make to for them to help them to refocus again. Is that you really need to have the full application. You want the full application, it's going to take 1 or 2 years to develop. Or you want to make money now, that's your goal. In 3 months or 6 months. Then what can you do right now to get there? You really need to have a full reporting system. Or can we just export a spreadsheet and after you can play with the numbers, get some charts and see for yourself. It can be a lot of things manual. For a lot of things actually, a lot of things can be cut to be essential and to just get a result at the end of the day.
I think what we haven't mentioned MVP this evening, right? I think we talk about MVP a lot, right? And I think there's the user MVP, there's the business MVP, but actually it all ties into what is the most valuable objective to begin with. And once you find the most valuable objective, I think you're talking about prioritizing these features, prioritizing what we're going to do next. You can prioritize them from the user's point of view. What's the most valuable for the user? Is it this feature? But actually this feature is most valuable for the business. So those two things have to be married maybe quite closely for it to work. One can't really exist without the other, right? If you see what I mean. So it's a bit of a...
Is it minimum viable product?
Well, minimum viable, yeah, exactly.
Viability is kind of what Justin was saying.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Couple more questions.
I have an answer.
Sorry, Craig, sorry.
I'm taking my learnings now and I'm putting it to good use. When we start these meetings and workshops, we always ask the clients to bring key stakeholders, people who can make decisions, but often we do not do it ourselves. And the one thing I learned working at SoundPeaks is it's valuable to have someone who's techie, someone who's designy, someone who has different background, management. Quickly, you will find someone in that meeting who will say that does not make sense. And if there's an alignment, an agreement where it's not, technically viable, then you can that really quickly.
Another question. We've got 3 minutes left.
Hi, back here. I feel like you guys define design thinking methodology in very broad and macro strokes. I was wondering if you can give a case study individually for something that you've applied design thinking methodology on. Specifically, what were the first questions that you asked the client? What were some of the friction between your design thinking methodology and the client's native methodology? And then finally, what were the solutions that you came to?
We only have 3 minutes, but it's a great question.
1 minute each?
That could have been the whole talk. That's a great question. 1 minute each.
An example. It's a very difficult question to answer, actually. I think
it's a great. I like the initial question. What were the initial questions?
I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest. I think in action, it's basically for me. You go in and you already ask them what is your problem today? As a company, what do you do? What is your problem? What are you trying to achieve? Some of the problems in the past that we've had is where people have brought their own research. And I was only talking to this today to Chris, and it's if they've got their own research, you need to ask to see it first before you even take the job on. Because if they've not got the right research, then that's a problem. And the design thinking process is broken because it's the wrong research that you start your project with. So I think that maybe is one example of the empathize stage that has gone wrong. We have to question it.
I would ask what they have now and what do they want by the end of it.
Right.
If you don't understand what they have now and what they've attempted, then you may end up falling back into that pattern first.
Is there any specific examples that you've got, questions you asked?
Literally that, like, what do you have now? What have you tried? Because in this case, the product that we're working on now in True, it's been attempted 2 times before in different ways. So one of the questions I asked a couple of months back was, like, what did you actually do? What do you have existing now? And we're doing that week on week where we're asking the same questions about different things, because if you don't understand it, then you're not going to understand what they're trying to get out of it.
Jeremie, any first questions you asked the client that's really
We always start with like one exercise that we ask like what's your goals, and goals can be like business oriented, or it can be like depending on stakeholders. So we try to get like 3 on average stakeholders maximum, key stakeholders, 5 we maximum, the real maximum, and we ask each of them to go through like list of what's the main goals. So it can be okay we want to increase marketing by this much. But want to improve the user experience again. But for the CTO is that they want their performance, the website to be much faster, or more scalable. But there can be a lot of things. And at the end of that, we ask them okay, so prioritize what are 3 to 5 main goals from all that list, from all the stakeholders. And very often you see a lot of repeats anyway. So you see if there's many from all the stakeholders say the same goal, okay, that's a common goal already. It's very obvious. And once you've got that, after it's very easy to move on to the next exercises.
Ray finishes up.
I think my case study would probably be the reason why I founded the design school. The question was, why is higher education failing industry, not just in Thailand, but in all of Southeast Asia? I had a conversation with Tom Heath, and he said, I can't hire people. We want to scale, and we want to build industry, and I can't do it. So the simple product market fit was to build something that could bridge the gap between higher education and industry. And that really was a kind of design thinking process. But I would say, as my final 5 cents, I truly believe going with intuition and then post-rationalizing something afterwards is equally as good as incremental design thinking.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've made it! Well done! I'd like you to do me a favour. Take your right hand, like this, left shoulder, and pat yourself on the back. Come on. There you go. Well done. Well done. Christian, you do it. You do it. You know you want to. Ladies and gentlemen, well done. Thank you so much to the panel. Can we have a round of applause? And secondly, can we have another round of applause for Seven Peaks for hosting us on the video pieces? So thank you, Justin. Thank you to everybody. Yeah, so I believe it's pizza and beer and then regret. Is that what we're doing?